in the U.S. Food Sovereignty Alliance are fighting these kinds of injustices. And we are the Food Sovereignty Alliance because everything circles around food and what people eat and how food is produced and how food is governed, how policies and regulations are set in the production and the marketing of food.
You could get paid a fair wage. You could probably pay off your debts. You could maybe buy more land if you had a son or daughter that wanted to come into the farm. And that system pretty much went out in the 80s when parity pricing went out. And at that point, it switched from protecting farmers and the land and consumers to making more and more money for big corporations, multinational corporations that deal all over the world, push farmers off the land, produce a lot of cheap commodity food that kind of makes us all sick. Farmers should have a fair living. Consumers should have good, healthy food at a price you can afford, and the environment shouldn't have to suffer.
When we talk about food sovereignty, I think there is a necessity to integrate labor within the conversation because our system doesn't work without human labor. And it's a labor of love. It's also a labor of pain and oppression and slavery. So my entire family was born into the food economy through slavery. My great ancestor, her name was Sarah Snyder. When she was 3 years old, she was incorporated onto a plantation. She had to work 12, 15-hour days, getting scraps from the person who happened to own the land. And now today, in cities like Detroit, you have working women who share a very similar fate. They work 12, 15 hours to get tips and to get these pittances from owners and bosses that are really just extending this legacy of economic subjugation to so many working people.
Urban people are, for the most part, landless people. We don't often own anything. And not only do we not own anything, but we've been disconnected from a land base, from a land culture, for at least one generation, sometimes more. So the work is to reconnect people with land. It's also about questioning public space, questioning private property and public domain. So public land should be used for the public good, and it shouldn't be enclosed in such a way where people who are without land can't access it, right? We're also reclaiming our identities, our communities, our culture. I think that in a lot of ways, the urban landscape and urban ag is like holding a line against the extractive economy.
Most of the people who we serve depends on food stamps, and when you have food stamps, you don't have the luxury of going to any aisle and shopping. So healthy food was an issue for us. So our organization decided to come up with this program where we help the people access land and produce their own healthy food. So that is the angle we are coming from for food sovereignty. We started farming in 2014 with 20 farmers, and we could put as much as 135 families into the field and producing more than we can consume. So we are now accessing markets, we are selling, and people are now getting healthy food at the same time selling their produce, which is creating some income. And we are fighting economic problems in that way.
My Yupik name is Anguta.
Okay.
And from the Yupik Nation in Western Alaska. We share the circumpolar Inuit culture as well, but we're salmon people. Food sovereignty to me is that access and that cultural importance of the sacred animals, the sacred waters, and the sacred land that provide for us, that have been providing for us for thousands of years.
We can all unite, though, and light in the height of sight is if we taking flight. So stand with us, raise your hand with us, still our heights. No, your sights gone. Let me turn your lights on. Protect our ocean, rivers, creeks, and streams, the 7 seas a week.